since I know I have a few people in the crowd who are Google savvy. Yes, Steve, laugh with each other, not laugh at me. I love it. And I'm going to tell you how to make money. Isn't that cool? Yes, Diana, we're going to have the whole formula figured out in less than an hour. This is going to be great. I dropped a link to the Google slideshow that just has 2 slides in it right now. They're really prompts that I would use with students to try to get them thinking about, how do we make money? And then how do the people who give us money make money? And, that whole food chain of money and how it works. So in there, I have a bulleted list started, and that link gives you editing privileges. I'm interested to see how many people can get into a slide at one time. But if you want to, you can click into that bulleted list. I'll make a few entries in here just to give some space. And of course, I delete it first instead, which is always fun. So maybe we have different ideas. There we go. Thank you, Lacey. So if you want to jot down some ideas in here about how does one make money, we're talking, since we're doing a business simulation, maybe we should center on businesses. How does a business? So this is kind of a KWL exercise that you would do with students. I wouldn't suggest doing it all digitally like this because of our remote nature and how we're connecting to each other tonight. Obviously, this is a little easier to do. So we've got sell things. That's good. Obviously, we should probably have to make things if we're going to sell them, so I'll just throw that above you. Make things, sell things. Are there other ways people make money? Make things, sell things. This is serendipity. As you're typing these ideas in, I get an email from a game simulation that simulates the investing in stocks. And it says in the title of the email, evaluating a business. How do you evaluate a business? It's just really funny that happens at the exact same time we're discussing this. Makes you wonder if everybody's watching what you do on the internet. So we have make things, sell things, provide a service, borrow things. Actually, you can make some money off of borrowing. Fill a need. So these are all things, like why do businesses exist? And you start wondering, what kind of preconceptions people have out there. Determining needs. You can actually make money off of just determining needs. And I would follow up this discussion with traditional methods that people might get into a business or own a business for each of these different categories. Is it always the same? If I wanted to sell a business that sells things, would I start up a business very similar to a business that makes things? And we'll get into that discussion. So these don't have to be very long conversations, but it really does get students beginning to think about how things work, which is really important for any gameplay to be effective. You really have to set this stage of reflecting. Why are things working, or how do they work? So the brainstorming, I would really encourage you to do that before you get into any gameplay with learners. The second slide here is, what do businesses need to be able to handle? We talked earlier about, just that previous slide of different ways they can make money. But what kind of things do businesses have to be able to handle? So if anybody wants to come in there and type up a few options, I'll make some space in here so you can just click in here and type some ideas in. And I do have to remember that the live feed is a few seconds behind me. So I have to remember to give appropriate time for people to type some things in. Somebody put in meeting other people's needs, and I think that's an important aspect. But the others, I would question, who are the others? Are we talking about the clients? Are we talking about board of directors? Are we talking about directors? Are we talking about employees? Are we talking about providers? I mean, that others is a big, big category. Customers' needs. Because ultimately, if you're not meeting customers' needs, there's going to be some problems. Provide access. Okay, I'm assuming provide access to a product or to their services. And they have to be able to do marketing. Waiting to see a few other ideas if people have them. One of the joys of what we're going to experience today in this very playful business simulation, people think that businesses involve getting into a position, hiring some people, making stuff, making money, shipping it out, selling it, and then you get to fire people if you need to. And like, okay, it's a total power trip, and that's all you need for a business to be successful. Excuse me. Oh, money to start up and run. I like that. Dealing with staff. Oh man, is that a headache sometimes, right? Handle money, of course. Yep, money coming in, money going out. I love that list. And what we're going to experience in the game called Zapitalism is a lead up, a nice lead up to get people interested into all the different aspects that we're listing here, space and location. That's a huge one. You know, once you get successful in a space, how do you expand that? Do you make other little spaces diversified around an area? Do you just make it bigger? So yeah, space is definitely going to be something in there. Finding the right market? No? Right staff. Oh yes. That comes down with staff management, of course, too, because having the right team of people working with you can make or break a company for sure. So with these ideas, let's see how that translates. You have all just shared with me a great list. I appreciate that. And it shows some things that we're going to have to check. Does this simulation cover all those bases? And does it cover it for somebody who's completely ignorant of businesses? I probably should go by a show of hands, maybe in the stream chat. How many of you, if you could just say me in the chat, how many of you actually run a business or have owned a business in the past? And again, I'm assuming most of our audience listening or participating are probably coming from the education field. But as we all know, educators often have side jobs. So in the chat, some people are writing down in the slideshow. You can do that in the slideshow too. So Steve's sharing, not me. I run a consulting business, but of course that's not really a business where I have, lots of. Yeah, Diana's kind of the same way, kind of consulting businesses. Yeah. So we have different experiences right here in our group of business expertise. So it'll be interesting to see if our experience within this game varies based on our previous business experience in life. I've shared the link to this game in the chat, and I'll do it again just for those of you who are joining into the chat a little bit later. The game is called Zapitalism. It is a free-to-play game. The free version only allows for 20 moves, which we'll see as we go through. You can do some very constructive things in that limitation. However, there is an opportunity for you to buy the full version Turns out you don't buy a version of this game. It's more of you pay a subscription. It's $14 a year. And since one game can support 6 students at a time, many people may not need much more than one license to be able to engage learners, depending on how many learners you want to work with at a time. I have found that you can work with groups of students teaming up together to make decisions, because after all, every business decision is usually decided by a team of people, and might as well get them experiencing that. We're going to click on play free game. Before you do that, you notice I have not logged in. As far as getting accounts, the accounts are free, and when you log in, it'll keep track of some things. It'll allow you to add other people to a game. I'm going to get my credentials in here. And this assumes I can remember my passwords and such. There we go. So I'm logged in right now, and you can see that once I log in, it gives me an option to play the full game, a free game, or to start a group game. Now, group game, since I have live participants with me, why don't we do that just to see how that works? Now, you can play it with friends. You enter their emails or their usernames. One of the challenges there is I will need to know your email or username. You know what? For the tutorial part of this, though, I want to keep this in mind towards later. Maybe we could play together as a group. But I don't think it's really important for us to see the group interaction quite yet. But I would have students play as a group to begin with. But if you say play the free game, it does give you an option of choosing how many players are human. So even though it seems like you're just playing by yourself, you can hit start a new game and click on tutorial to begin. The tutorial builds in complexity as somebody goes through. I'm going to choose 1 player, but this is where you would choose 6 players if you had a bunch of students you were trying to get into the game. If I had a class of 24 students or so, I might group them up 4 to a group or 3 to a group, depending on how many students I had. And I would put them each on teams, and they're going to run one of these businesses. I'm going to choose 1 player. Now I have a choice of all these different fictitious companies. And of course, we have no idea about any of these companies. So we can click on the company. We see a little funny icon, and there's sound effects, which I have turned off right now because they're cute, but they can get obnoxious when you're recording things. And if you look up here at the description, it says, Tibby has no ambition to be the biggest store on the block. Just a nice, friendly place where the customers can feel at home. Tibby's strategy is to grow her business by building up a loyal customer base and a solid position within the community. So I can look at whether I like that description or not, and I can click on special ability if I really want to see what are some of the special features of owning Tibby's shop. There's a lot of information here. And in fact, if I was introducing this to learners, I would print out all of the information here on cards, double-sided cards, the description on one side, right here, the description, and the special ability on another side for the card. Maybe even include the icons, so maybe those who are fashion conscientious can pick the one that appeals to them artistically. But let them decide as a team. Give them the full set, the full complement of stores, and let them choose that before they start the game. And there needs to be a rationalization. Why is it? What is it that your group hopes to accomplish with this? And again, that's about teamwork. How do you build a team? How do teams work on business decisions? Later on in the process, we can reflect on how the team is working. How does the company work based on your teamwork? I'm going to say no to that and go back and just show you Splunkers. And of course, if you have the game open, you can be exploring this as well. And it's the same idea. Notice here, this is Spinnaker, sorry. Spinnaker sees himself as a mover and groover, one cool dude with an attitude. He wants his store to be the low price leader, so to cut corners and to mass merchandise. Spinnaker's strategy is no frills, small bills, stay low and sell below. So this is a strategy, and it actually is associated with some special abilities that this store owner would have. So I want to give you a moment. I'm going to click through the different stores on screen for those people who have not gone to the site, just to show you some of the variation. Bun Meister is definitely the offensive type store. He wants to make sure he's going to conquer everybody, wipe them out, run them out of business. That's the best way to keep the profit margin high. So this is much more of an offensive strategy, especially compared to the Tiki one, which is more of a hi, we want to fit in the customer's community, be a part of their community. And the Brig Brothers, they always feel at a disadvantage because of his background, often tries overly hard to impress people with his achievements. The greatest fear is to lose everything and have to return to the slums. So this is kind of an insecure business, one that has a little bit of a concern. It's more of a family-run operation. And if you look at their special abilities, it's very interesting how that translates. Because of their unique management style, he has earned the devotion and trust of his workers. So it's a people person. Even if his staff gets upset over lower pay and some of the other problems, they quickly bounce back. Effectively, you're not going to have to work on keeping your employees as happy over time as some of the other businesses might. And then we got Huff Money's Emporium. And this is much more of the eccentric entertainer. And he's definitely looking for, if you look at his special aspects up here, he's a natural born entertainer. He can travel anywhere for free. We're going to start with domestic trade, and it will open up to more of an international trade market. And this is where this company is really going to soar because they won't have as many of the costs to integrate with other areas or other regions. Then we have Grunion. And here we want a big bad boss to run the shop while she dreams up new ways to destroy her competitions. So this is another one that's a little bit on the offensive end, not really a warm, fuzzy business. And, of course, you can see there's special effects. So right now, just choosing a company can be a very valuable experience for learning about business, learning about economics, and learning about how do you run an organization as a team. So it can be a great team building experience just choosing that one exercise. And I'd love to hear if any of you have any thoughts as to how you might use these different choices differently. So if you have any of those ideas or thoughts of how you might use all these choices differently, go ahead and type those up and I'll read those when I see them. Again, there is a few second delay between what I transmit here and what people type. So I do appreciate your patience with that. While I'm waiting for anybody's input on that, I'm going to choose Tibby's Boutique. And it's just because I'm all about community. I want to be part of the community. So let's see if I can make that work in my simulation. So I'm going to say yes to this because I want to run this store. And it automatically starts off. Now in week 1, this is the tutorial mission, I'll remind you. In the tutorial mission, we're going to start fairly simply. Everybody has $50,000 to spend. And our first company to reach 5 million Zables, the Zables is the currency in the game, wins the round. The final winning point is 10 billion. So it's kind of in 2 phases. Win a round by getting 5 million, win the whole final thing by getting 10 billion. We probably are not going to progress that far in the time we have because there's a lot to explain and a lot to experience. So it starts off with here's the wholesaler, the provider of the goods, the one who's going to sell to all of us, always ranks our stores in order of who's done the best. This is really important to point out to learners that even if they feel like they're doing poorly, if they do really well in a round, their business gets to pick first from all the goods in the next round. This is really vital. So someone can come from behind simply because they can liquidate a market or take advantage of special sales that come up before companies that are really doing well. So I like this. Those companies that struggle often are put behind the ball a little bit, but it also gives some opportunities for variability in the choices students make. And this is just reminding us that this is a tutorial and the game is turn-based. So there is no speed involved. You can put up a situation, ask the class to process it, and each group, as they submit their responses to you, they can come up and maybe enter in their team's information. In fact, the multiplayer game is usually done as what's known as a hot seat. It'll say player 1, please input your information, then player 2. They're showing us that the Royal Wholesaler looks like this little yellow pincushion building, so that when I hit OK, I get to the city where there's all these different buildings, and if I mouse over them, there'll be different descriptions of each of these. None of these buildings are open yet except for the center one, and the whole idea of the tutorial is it'll build up what each of these buildings offer to your business. And I do see something stated here. Lisi's sharing she has a grant coming up to train high school students in a super remote area of Alaska. We need to train students on how to start a business. This might work to support the plan. It would definitely work. If you tied in, Lisi, this game experience as well as some of the basics of writing a business plan, for instance, I could definitely see this being a very helpful thing. It would be nice to have internet access and at least one computer so you can get 6 groups going. And you can use the free version for that, and that would probably suffice depending on how large a number you have of people. I clicked on the wholesaler, and these names are ridiculous, silly, and mostly random. I don't know. I've seen some that duplicate. But for each one of these, I get units for sale, cost per unit, and estimated next profit per unit. So for students who aren't familiar with reading charts and graphs, we're going to get access. They have super internet access. Awesome. You're on as a consultant. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. Let me see. If you click on any of these products, look what shows up. I now have graphs, bar graphs. I have table graphs. I have all the table data rather. I have many different ways now to make my decision. And remember, we're working in teams of 3. And I can see how many wholesale units are out there. What is the total demand for this product? This 391 means there are 391 people lined up right now to buy this product. They want this product. And this shows me how much cash I have, if I've taken out loans, and how many do I have in my store. This shelf space is important. You only get space for 100 things. The 100 spaces that you fill, you can buy all of these if you want, but which one? Do you want 100 of one of them? Do you want to diversify? Just 1 or 2? Just that decision is going to prompt a lot of discussion. One question I like to ask students, look at this green bar and the orange bar. What do they represent? There's no unit, there's no description down here. And I love the fact that they didn't do that. They left no description on the horizontal axis. And we can only assume that this is money because it kind of looks like unit for sale, but they may have to determine that. And if I click through the different ones, well, that one's got a shorter green. That one's got shorter both, bigger green, and bigger orange. So right away, here's a great question to ask groups. Which one of these is the best one for your company to buy or concentrate on, and why? Based on this graph, explain why. I'll give it a few minutes here just to see, for those of you who have access to the game and you're clicking around, I'll give you access to look at those, and I'll click on these randomly every once in a while so people can see different numbers and see what they think they are. But if you know what it is, if you want to type that in the chat window, I'll read it for the person who states that. It's kind of a competition now. See who gets it first. So as we look through these, I would almost ask students, which one's more valuable? Is the green bar more valuable than the orange in your decision process? And why should that be or shouldn't that be? While people are figuring that out, I would also like to point out that on the very bottom of the screen, it says product info. If I clicked on product info, it tells me a description of what these things are. I like the creativity here. It talks about, different crazy things that people are buying. It's not so far-fetched when you look at the Christmas shopping frenzy that's going on now. But when you hit next, it goes through a little bit more, a story about the outline of the product. And it really gives them an idea of what are you selling, even though it's a totally fictitious product. Oh, it's hard to read. Thank you for letting me know that. I keep forgetting that when I transmit, I have to zoom. And actually, when I zoom this in, that might be better. I don't know if that should be better. I'm trying to zoom it up and still see the screen. Steve is sharing activity for the first part of the game. Read descriptions and have students come up with vocabulary, like a thesaurus, to describe the personal traits or qualities. Oh, I like that, Steve. That's cool. Yeah, so we can get some literacy in on that first part where they're describing. It would also be interesting to go on that idea, Steve. What if we asked them, do you have a family member or a friend that you think should be running this company and why? So now we're getting them to reflect on their personal lives, and they're bringing their personal lives and their personal situations into play. So that's a good idea, Steve. Thank you for sharing that vocabulary building suggestion. Well, you see, hopefully this is easier to read at this point. The top line up here says total wholesale units. That's 220. Total demand is the next one. Total units in all stores. Your cash, your loan, your notes, and it says no comment next to that. Another idea, if you're having a hard time seeing the screen, many of you have the chat up and you're looking at the chat going on, which is valuable. But I'll remind you that if you hover your mouse over the video portion of the live stream, there is a full screen button that shows up in the lower right hand corner of that video, and that will blow up the video to the full screen. So you might want to toggle that on and off to check the chat every once in a while, but to see the screen in larger size. That may be helpful. So every game is random. So I want the company store that's going to fit right in with what people want. So I'm looking for things that are reasonable, it seems. This bar liquors product, it looks like the sale margin on the profit margin on that is just so small. I don't think I could really invest in that. But it's really cheap to buy. So I'm going to invest a little bit. I'm going to buy just a little bit of stock in this. Let's say I'm going to buy 10 pieces. But the cost is just so low. I'm going to jack the price up a little bit. So I'm just going to charge 55 here. Just a little bit extra. Now you'll notice when you're setting the price, you have an option here to write comments to yourself. As you're going from turn to turn to turn and you're looking at all of these different products, it's sometimes hard to remember, especially with made-up names. Bar liquors, was that the one that was really good, or was that the one that was really cheap? Oh, I don't remember. So I'm going to just put down here, this is our risky test. And I'm just going to put some nomenclature in here for myself. plus 5. I added $5 onto the deal. Now, I also have a drop down here to decide, do I think this is a good deal, an average deal, or a bad deal? Right now I'm going to leave it an average deal because I have no data to know if this is good or bad. And I'll select OK. So I've used up 10 of my space of 100. Well, I'm not going to go through and really micromanage a whole lot because I would like to get into the simulation. So I'm going to look at, if you haven't figured out the green bar and the orange bar, the green bar is for what the unit sales, what the unit cost, how many units are for sale. The orange bar is how much profit should be expected. So if you're in it for profit, look at the orange bar. But you also have to think about the supply. So there's supply and profit in this graph, which can be quite an interesting combination to make decisions on. So let's say we really want to go with jazzy lumps just because it sounds really cool. Now it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of profit here, but you know, I'm all about my community. So I'm going to buy some jazzy lumps because I got some jazzy people here. And I'm going to go ahead and put 50. I'm going to buy 50 of those out of my 100 store spots. I'm going to leave the price there just to see what happens with them. And these Icaps, you know, everybody needs an Icap today. You know, they got everything else. Might as well have an Icap. I'm not sure what it does. Maybe it hovers over a swimming pool or something. I don't know. In case your hair gets wet. So I'm going to buy, let's do 40 of these. And that leaves me with 10 more. Oh, no, that fills my shelf space, actually. And I'm going to keep the price there regular just so I can see what's going on in the markets. Now, my turn's done. I bought everything. If you try to leave early, it will tell you, hey, you still have some open spots here. Are you sure you want to leave yet? I'm going to hit back. I'm all done with my turn. I'm going to hit end turn. And it's going to immediately jump because I'm only playing one person. And if it was a 6-person game, the second player would now play. And the third team would go in the 4th and 5th, 6th. You can see that because I'm really not reading through and making smart decisions, I got brutalized. That's horrible. I think I made $191 total. Which is horrible. I've played this game a bunch, and I don't think I've ever had such a low total. So that means we're choosing last because we really didn't make good decisions. Now, the wholesaler really values the little guy. So although we made horrible decisions, they think, you know what? We're going to give it to Tibby's here. We think they should choose first. So we now get a report of what happened for us. We have the stack of money we just made. It tells us our profits. And for each one of these items, check out the data we get. We get percents, we get graphs, all this stuff for mathematical interpretation, all nice and good. And below that, we get percentages, which really gets into an interesting discussion. What are those percentages of? So here we're at 3%. It's very hard to see on my monitor right now, those light colors. This one here, Spinnaker is listed at 15%. Meister has 26%. And you notice the graph up here, the data up here changes a little bit. So here's Briggs. Hoffman's made a killing, 41%. So I might compare Hoffman's because they did much, Hoffmani's rather. He did much better than I did with this. And I might try to assess why. He had his price at $69. Let's look at what I had. I had $55. How come he sold better than I did? My reputation is 50. His reputation is 50. He sold 92 units and only had 8 left. He had 8 defective returns. I had 10 units sold. I sold out. So it wasn't so much that he outsold me. I probably sold out before he did. But I just didn't have enough stock to keep up with all the sales he was going to do. He invested in it more. Now, another thing to keep track of is the defective returns. Who has a more reliable product? Am I more reliable with 2 defective returns out of my 10? Or is Huffmani more reliable with 13 out of his 92 units having to be returned? So again, we're getting into numerical analysis. Are students able to put that into either ratios or fractions or decimals or percents or any of those expressions to make an informed decision? Whose are more reliable? And of course, I could look at all of them and say, who's got the most reliable sales on this? That might be important. If I know that my companies are not really keeping up with the Joneses in terms of reliability with that product, I probably should not be investing in that product in the future. I should liquidate what I have and move on to something that my crew is more efficient at. And again, if I click on Icaps, check this out. I was the only one selling Icaps. Woohoo! Hooray for me. But I still have 18 of them in my inventory. So I didn't quite sell out. There wasn't quite the demand I expected. So maybe I shouldn't have bought as many because I still have some money tied up in there. But none of the others even tried to sell Icaps. They just don't know a good thing when the market's moving on them, I tell you. Then we have jazz lumps. Jazz lumps, we come in here, and again, I was the only one selling them. I only sold 1 unit. I got 59 to sell. All right, so this is something where I'm definitely going to have to change my price on this. So I can do that right here. I can click on change price. $880 what I sold it last week. Oh, wait, is that right? No, I priced it at $1,100. All right, so I'm going to change price. I had it at $1,100. Let's bring that down to $900 just to see what happened. Whoops. And I'm going to put down here that was a bad deal last time. Let's just see how that goes from time to turn. And up here at Icaps, I did sell a decent number of them. I might want to put them on sale to liquidate these and maybe move on to another product. But of course, I have the ownership of this, and nobody else is into my market yet, so maybe I keep it the same. My bar liquors, though, I sold all 10. I have none left. I don't know if I want to get into this again. I don't know if I can compete with Huffmani's. Again, I would look at my defective return rate and try to make that decision. They have a button down here for overhead. This just keeps track of my loans, my net profits and losses. Kind of like a ledger, monthly end of ledger. And then the product info. This gets back to the textual description. So let's hit continue. We've seen how we've done. Now we're in a tutorial, so it introduces the idea of a loan. And we get to see a graph of how things are going. So it looks like Grunion's doing pretty good. And then Briggs is doing well. This is in terms of history. But if I do sales, I get to see a pie graph of who's selling the most. Looks like it's a blue versus green here. And the net effect, I can see that. I don't know, are we even on the chart? Whether I can read charts well or not, this little sliver is probably indicating I'm not doing so hot. My cash, that's about equal. And then the size of our companies, nobody's got to the point where we can expand our businesses. So again, lots of data for students to analyze how are we doing. In terms of sales, we're not doing good. But again, as we go through multiple turns, we may have more and more options. Well, let me go back and look at the loan office. I currently have enough money. I have $50,000. I actually gained $190 last turn. So I really don't need to borrow money. But I could go ahead and borrow it. And for this sake, I'm going to go ahead and borrow. My credit limit's $200,000. Yeah, you know what? Let's take over this by storm. They say it takes money to make money. Let's find out if that works. I think when they said it takes money to make money, they probably meant intelligent money rather than ignorant money. We're going to see how that plays out. So I just got a huge financial boost. I better be making some money right now. I can see up here, oh no, 67% of my shelf space is already filled. I've got to move that inventory, make way for more profitable things. And up here it's saying estimated net profits. It looks like sea froth. Oh, that might be high. Now remember, I get first dibs on everything. So I get to buy as much of anything as I want. I'm going to buy the maximum amount I can on this because that looks like a good product. Unfortunately, I have all this other junk on my shelf logging up, what's going on this quarter. This is why car salesmen have end of the year events to try to push vehicles off the lot so they can get in on the latest and greatest things coming up. So now students can get like a perspective of why do they have an end of season clearance sale? Why don't they carry some of these items every single season? So knowing that I need to get rid of these jazzy lumps, I know I lowered it down to 900, but I'm going to lower it even more. I want to just liquidate these puppies. Let's get these down to, I'm going to go just 800 because I do want to make a little bit of money off of them. But I want them to move off the shelf. I can look at the other items and I get to see their graphs and what their demands are. The jazzy lumps, the thing I'm having such a hard time moving, the total demand is only 50. I've got 49 in hand. It's almost like I have to pay them to take them off my hands. That's a horrible position to be in. And my Icaps, that's a little better. I only have 18 left. There's a demand of 295 of those. You know what? I know I want to move those, but I only have 18. I'm going to change that price and bring that back up. Oops, 9,000 is not going to work. 900. We'll say okay. All right, I'm done. There's some other options we can explore there, but I want to show you some of the other features. So the loan balance is adjusted every week. It's automatically adjusting my balance. I start learning about compounding interest. I learn about how much cash I made, how much of a loan I got. And we can see where we ranked here in terms of money for this turn. So we can see we moved to the middle of the pack. I don't know if that's because of our loan or if that's because of the money we made. We get second pick right now. Huff gets the first. So that's kind of interesting. Icaps, no profit. Uh-oh. Icaps, we made a big mistake on that. Why? We didn't sell any of them. We still have 18 in stock. What was Huff? Remember they had the market on that before? What were they doing? They had the price at 387. We had it at 900. Geez, I wonder why we didn't sell very many. We got massively undersold. And it's obvious that Meister had a much lower price, and that he doesn't look like he had that many. He only had 13 units on there. So it's interesting to see how things change over time and some of the market adjustments that have to go on. Sea froth was a good investment. Fortunately, nobody else got in on that. So if sea froth is available next time and the demand's still high, we might want to jump in on that again. Jazzy lumps, did I sell everything? Unsold stock, 36. Oh, that's just going to be something I'm not going to move very quickly. So it's going to clog up inventories. Now we get to price the products. Now, I've already been showing you this. So the tutorial would start introducing it now, but I've already been changing the price of my products. Now we look at the history. We're still bottom lining it here. Green has surpassed blue. Blue had a bad turn. We can look at our sales. At least we're part of the pie now. Before we were a sliver. But you can see in here all the questions and prompts that you can start asking. Now, for those of you who have a Windows machine and you're using Windows 7, I think Windows 10 has it as well. There's a tool called the snipping tool. Snipping tool. When you click on the snipping tool, it allows you to capture certain portions of the screen. So I can just drag over parts of a screen. Let's just say this amount. So even if you as a teacher played the game and just took screenshots of the charts without any other information, you could have students write narratives based on these charts. Can you describe what this company values? Can you describe the investment this company has been making? What do you see in changes from this week's to last week's to the weeks before? Describe what your company has been doing differently and how that resulted in this change. That idea of taking data and turning it into a narrative with them justifying their decisions in the narrative based on the data is really a high-level skill. And you're going to find that some learners really get into it. Many learners need to have that scaffold. So if anybody has any idea of how you would scaffold that, please share those ideas, because I think it's really difficult. Some are visually intelligent. You have a high visual spatial intelligence, so they may look at this and instantly see stories within these pictures, whereas other students may look at this and just say, yeah, green's bigger. Okay, so what? What does that mean? They're really not understanding the graph. What is the graph telling them? How does it relate to all of these different graphs? So I would love to have like a week 3 picture of all of these graphs, and then a week 1 picture, and then a week 2, and have them just compare 3 weeks. Tell me the story of this company. Or just even ask a simple question. Who's winning? Which one's going to win if there was 10 weeks? Which one would win if there was 100 weeks? There are no one right answer in this situation. They may have many attempts at rationalization. You're really looking for what are they using from the data to justify their experience. So now I'm back to purchasing. How much shelf space do I have? I cleaned out a little bit. Again, I'm just going to go with what the estimated profit is. I'm going to play it safe because I do know it's a tutorial. The demand is pretty high on that. So I'm just going to go for sea froth, and I'm going to buy up as much as I can. And for these other jazzy lumps, I know I need to massively. Well, actually, let's see total demand is 46. We have 36. So guess what, folks? I'll pay you to take them. I'm just going to charge 200 for that. And the Icaps, you know what? They didn't really move. So I'm going to cut that in half. We're slashing prices here. Come on down to Easy Eddies. We're going to sell everything this week. And that's all I'm going to do for this turn. I'm going to hit end turn. We'll see how we did. Again, we're third. I guess it's not bad to be in third all the time. We'll see how that relates to order. Aha! Either they think we're the biggest losers or we have the most potential. I'm not sure which. But anyway, we get to choose first, so that's kind of cool. Let's go ahead and see what we have for profit loss. Those jazzy lumps were a total loss. We just liquidated. Units sold 36. We got rid of those things. We never want to go with jazzy lumps again. And then we can look at our sea froth. That's the only thing keeping us viable and afloat. And our Icaps are just kind of putzing along. Oh, Huff got into the deal. Last time we were the only ones selling. So now I'd like to see what my competition is doing. He is selling at 366. We're selling at 500. You know what? I'm kind of amazed that we sold all 18 units. Why didn't they buy all Huff? Oh, they did. They bought all 32 of his. And we were second best. And fortunately, there was enough of a demand for us to get the bigger prices. So we actually probably made out on that deal because Huff didn't have enough product. So we'll continue. Oh, now we get insurance protection. Uh-oh. Why do I need insurance? This is something our learners can really have a discussion about, because health insurance, at least in many places, is mandated now. And you get all kinds of severe fines if you don't have health insurance of some sort. So now, why does a business need insurance? What are they insuring? And there's some information here that helps out with that. And it says, when purchasing insurance, ask yourself, is the insurance price low? Is there news of a pending disaster? Are you on a bad luck streak? If so, it's wise to buy insurance. Now, in real life, I don't know if anybody really gauges their luck streak. But, we have some weeks where we definitely feel like, oh, it's going to be one of those weeks. That's when we just take more naps, right? That's how we count. We don't take out insurance, we just take more naps. We'll call it a nap insurance. Hey, our pink line is moving up. We've moved up into third place overall in terms of the net cash. Cool. We're starting to make some better decisions. We look at sales. Oh, blue is so dominant. And net growth, we're actually showing up on the chart now, which is cool. Starting cash balance this week. This is nice to see who's got the money this week, who can invest. Grunion's got tons of money to dump into stuff. So we want to get stuff before he gets a chance. So we'll go back in. Let's go to the insurance company and see what they say. Each insurance policy lasts only 1 week. So this is a week to week. Oh, man. I thought 6-month insurance was a drag. It shows us how much it costs, what the price range is. We can auto buy if we set a price. This is kind of like the stock market. We can set a stop limit. And it shows us how much cash we have on hand and our loan. Your fortune rating, 3 lucky stars. Hey, we're good. So we even get our fortune told. I don't know if insurance companies should start adopting this procedure to help people buy stuff. But who knows? Maybe it works. We're not going to do insurance. Nothing bad will ever happen to us, right? And I'm never going to grow old, and I'll never need money for retirement. Nap insurance. Oh, I love that idea, Steve. Nap insurance. So let's look at estimated prices. Nobody's going to go near Jazzy Lumps anymore. Sea froth has been a biggie for me. My store is empty. And you know what? I'm just going to keep riding the sea froth. Because why not? It's been a winner for me. I don't have to think. I could just put it out there. The customers buy it. I'm running a business. Of course, this is going to come back to bite me eventually. But you're going to have some learners who adopt that philosophy. I'm going to ride the biggest, bestest horse right now, and I'm going to dominate. You'll notice the Grunion company, that's the blue company, they still made a little bit more than me, but at least I'm in the discussion now. 300,000 versus 319,000. And I'm still top of the list, so they still want to work with me as a wholesaler first. Ooh, now instead of bills, we got the big old gold coins. That's kind of nice. And believe it or not, we were the only ones to sell sea froth. Everybody just doesn't know what they're missing. That's nuts. In fact, I'm interested. There is a way, it's not here. There's a way for me to check what each company sold. That's just telling me parts of the screen. Estimated net profit. Keep an eye on your estimate net profit is how much you can expect to make for each unit sold. Now, I already talked about that in discussing that and how I would interpret that chart. But if students were doing this game alone, there are guides each week to introduce them to the idea of, okay, what's net profit used for? Here's my net profit. I blew everyone away in terms of net cash in 1 week. What a deal. What a deal. And you can see sales, I outsold everybody. And history-wise, I'm moving up. So although I looked like a nincompoop to start, I am redeeming myself. So, of course, as many businesses are wont to do, was just ride that dead horse until that horse drops. Oh, wait, I can't even fill up with all that. I have liquidated my supplier's resources of sea froth. So now I need to write a letter to my suppliers indicating that they need to make more sea froth for me. It's a big ocean. They should be able to do it. So now we get students into writing persuasive letters from their company, trying to rationalize what they want, why they want it, and why it's in their best interest of their providers to give it to them. So it's very interesting to see what learners write. with this kind of impetus, because they're expressing to themselves verbally with each other their frustration of, oh man, we're 33 short. We can't. All right, what are we going to do with the other 33? How come they couldn't supply us? All these frustrations. And it's really fun to listen to those conversations because this happens in business. So we're gonna go with our philosophy of whatever the estimated net profit is, it's got to be good, and we're gonna go with Zapparoni. Now, trust me from experience, this does not always work out. So if it does in this simulation, I apologize for those of you who in the future try this out and it doesn't work. Sorry, it is random, and then I can go back. All right, and I'm gonna hit end turn just to see what happens. On my way to work, you come across a poor, dirty urchin who asks for 31,700 zables to buy food, clothing, and a ticket home. Do you help this poor person? What? Oh, man, now I have moral decisions? Wait, I just want to run a business, man. Now you're telling me I got to make moral choices? Well, yeah, you do. And I can choose yes or no, and believe it or not, these choices do affect the game. They can come back and hurt me. I'm going to say yes just for ha-ha-has. Turns out the poor dirty urchin is an estranged family member of a wealthy Yeppanilian merchant. After years of separation, they finally become reunited due to your generosity. In appreciation for your help, the rich merchant sends you a check for $95,000. So sometimes your goodwill comes out, sometimes it doesn't. Kind of like in life. Taking care of others isn't always a profitable venture. It's always a matter of beauty's in the eye of the beholder almost, and a matter of moral judgment. So you get the idea of the game. I'm gonna back out of this for now, and I want to bring us back to the home screen here. And I have to scale down on here. I did just check out the time, so I know I want to respect everybody's time limits here. I do want to go in and just look at the group game settings and how would you start up a group game with some students. I would encourage everybody to start at the tutorial level with students unless you print out a lot of the information and you work with them without computers a bunch first. You could almost do a lot of this game without even the computer. You could just print off the screens and hand it out to students to make decisions and make projects out of this. So you don't even need a computer with the students to really make use of all these resources within this game. And that's why I wanted to share this with everybody, because there's so many uses for this. So what do I need here? I need my name. So there's Ed. Oh, it has to be full name. And then name my game. I'll call it Playing with Money. And then I would have email, or if anybody has signed up, they would have their username. And then I'd click Make Group. So with learners, depending on the learner's comfort range, I probably would have them all make a free account. It's not going to hurt them. And I'd probably take their username. In my case, my username is Ogier. And I would just go ahead and type those in, or have them type them in. Notice there's only 5 players because they're assuming I'm going to be one of the players as well. And we can make the group and play. Now, the nice thing about the group game is when you're done your turn, you hit done, it emails the other people, the next person in line, and says, you're up next, and they get their turn. So you can play this over a week, even though your students aren't with you. So that's what I like about this, and this is why I wanted to show you this option. This is a play by email option. So when it's your turn, you receive an email, you click a link, it brings you to your game, you do your turn, you move on. Now, if this is done over a week and people have something to write about, an assignment to write about, or some graphs to make, or some projections to make before they meet with you next, you're now flipping the classroom where everybody's playing this game during the week. The goal is to get everybody to go through 2 turns this week. Is that something we can do? We only did 1 turn last week. Now they're trying to work on efficiency and schedule and people's work schedules and such. So this also brings to mind how do you collaborate over distance if they have access to technology. because they're a team of 2 or 3 or 4 people. How are they making these decisions even though they're remote? Are they playing email tag or whatnot? So I hope you all saw some value to this game. There are many, many other games out there, and I think personally we can turn every game into a learning situation. I just think this is probably an easy entry into that concept because there's so much rich material here. We talk about in mathematics wanting to use real data and finding patterns. Well, you saw all the charts, graphs, and information that's there to make business decisions. We talked about the literacy elements. Steve had some great ideas, as well as Lisi, about bringing some literacy in here. Steve is sharing right now, this game reminds me in some ways of a business version of the Oregon Trail with higher competition factor. I can see students getting addicted to the game of investing week to week. I agree, Steve. I have seen students do this, and I've wanted to move on with things. And of course, they don't want to move on. They end up playing this. So I try to time it out so that these kind of experiences are towards the end of a class or towards the end of my time with someone, because otherwise they'll just sit there grinding away at this game until I say, look, we have to close up shop now. Please shut this down. Meanwhile, they haven't got a whole lot else done. Not that they're not learning. I mean, even if someone just played this game, they're going to learn aspects about running a business and managing a business and the cutthroatness of the business, if that's a new word. I think I just invented that. All right. Are there any other questions or thoughts? Lisi says, wonderful. Thanks a million. Yes, bringing related academics is central to adult learners hoping to succeed in further training. I agree. And Steve is sharing, thanks for introducing it to us, Ed. Until next time. And Diana says, thanks, Ed. Well, thank you all for joining. It's wonderful to have a live audience participating in the chat. I'm entertaining ideas and suggestions for next week. So as always, if anybody has suggestions, you can go to 5squared.us and you will find all the links that we use each week, as well as previous sessions. And you also have a link to the YouTube playlist for all the Hanging with Education sessions we've done. But more importantly for next week, it's very helpful for me to hear suggested topics from people. One suggestion I might have, and I'd love your input on it if you're still here, we talked about a business simulation. What about a Wall Street simulation after this? Would people want to see that? There's a wonderful Wall Street simulation we can take a look at and see how that might work. It's a step up from Zapitalism. It doesn't have the childish graphics and such. It really gets into much more of a Wall Street session. The recording, Lisi, you said please send us this recording. All my recordings are saved on my YouTube channel. There's a whole channel of that. I will post that information on links. And as always, the links to the YouTube playlist is here. And I also put a link to each session at the end of each listing. So under November 30th, this link here will bring you to the recording. It's automatically recorded. So you follow this link to get to the live session. I believe it brings you to the recording as well. If it doesn't, please let me know, and I'll try to make sure I clean that up. Well, thank you all for joining us for an hour. I hope you got something out of that and found useful. We'll probably play again next week. I like the idea of play and introducing play as an educational tool. It's just a matter of what we play with. So until next week, I wish you all a great week, and thank you for coming in.